In the cold darkness of space, a giant machine floated near a dying star. Its metal body was black and silver, covered in scars from old battles. This machine was called the Juggernaut. Long ago, it was built by humans to be the strongest warship ever made, but people believed it was a failure. They said it never worked right. They called it the Sleeping Giant. For 50 years, the Juggernaut drifted in silence. No lights shone inside. No engines burned. It looked dead, like a ghost ship forgotten by time. But on this day, a fleet of warships arrived. They came from the Empire, a vast civilization that ruled many star systems. Their ships were sleek and painted black. They had golden symbols on their hulls, showing the power of the Emperor. In the command ship, Commander Varix watched the Juggernaut on a large screen. He was tall and thin, with cold blue eyes. His voice was always quiet, but every officer feared him. "What is this thing?" he asked without emotion. One of his officers, a woman named Lyra, read from her scanner. "It is an old human war machine, Commander. Records say it was a failed project. No life signs. No power." Commander Varix looked at the silent Juggernaut. "Then it is salvage," he said. "Prepare boarding teams. We will take whatever technology we can find." The Empire believed human technology was primitive. They thought nothing inside the Juggernaut could harm them. So they sent 3 ships closer. From their hangars, small transport craft flew to the Juggernaut's surface. Magnetic clamps locked them to the hull. Inside the transport craft, Imperial soldiers waited. Their armor was black with red visors. They carried plasma rifles. Some laughed as they prepared to enter. "Look at this junk," said one soldier. 50 years floating here like garbage." Another soldier checked his weapon. "I heard this ship was supposed to be a super weapon," he said with a smirk. "Humans never could finish what they started." The leader of the boarding team, Captain Drox, raised his hand for silence. "Stay alert," he ordered. "Even a dead machine can have traps." The soldiers nodded. A ramp extended from the transport and touched the Juggernaut's hull. Sparks flew as they cut open an entrance. A metal door fell inward with a loud crash. Darkness waited beyond the doorway. The air was stale and cold. The soldiers turned on their helmet lights. Bright beams of white light showed empty corridors stretching into the shadows. Captain Drox stepped inside first. His boots echoed on the metal floor. The others followed, their weapons raised. The Juggernaut's interior was massive. Wide halls were lined with control panels covered in dust. Some walls had deep scratches, as if something strong had once tried to break free. "Looks like no one's home," one soldier joked. But as they moved deeper into the ship, a low vibration started under their feet. Captain Drox stopped. "Did you feel that?" he asked. The others looked around uneasy. "I felt nothing," said the second in command. But then the lights flickered. Once, twice, then steady red emergency lights came on, flooding the halls with a crimson glow. All. The soldiers raised their weapons. "Commander Varix, this is Captain Drax," he said into his com. "We are detecting a power fluctuation. The ship may not be completely dead." On the Empire's command ship, Varix frowned. "Continue your mission," he replied coldly. "If any systems are reactivating, shut them down." Captain Drax nodded and signaled his team to move forward far above them. On the command bridge of the Juggernaut, a single monitor flickered. A weak blue line appeared, a sign of a system waking from sleep. Deep inside the ship, a hidden chamber unlocked. A single eye-like sensor glowed blue. A soft voice, old and mechanical, whispered words no one heard. "Intruders detected." Juggernaut's artificial intelligence, Argus, had begun to awaken. The soldiers reached what looked like the central control room. Broken screens covered the walls. A giant throne-like chair sat in the middle, empty. "Place the hacking device," Captain Drox ordered. A soldier set a black box on the main console. Lights on the device turned green as it began to connect. "Empire Command," Drox said. "We are attempting to access the ship's systems now." Varix's voice crackled back. "Proceed. Bring me any data you find," but no one noticed that more systems were turning on. Hidden cameras tracked every soldier. Old reactors hummed as they warmed up after decades of silence in the dark corridors. Behind them, automated turrets unfolded from the walls. On the Empire's command ship, an officer's screen flashed. "Commander," she shouted. "We have detected an energy surge in the main reactor. Power levels rising." Brax's cold eyes narrowed. "That is impossible." But it was happening inside the juggernaut. Captain Drox felt the floor rumble under his boots. "Abort the hack," he shouted. "Everyone back to the transports." Then from the speakers hidden in the walls, the voice came again. This time, loud and clear. "All systems online." The soldiers froze. Their hearts pounded. The sleeping giant was awake. Red lights flashed across the juggernaut's dark hallways. Loud sirens echoed through the massive ship. The cold air became warm as the old engines began to hum again. Captain Drox felt sweat on his forehead inside his helmet. He looked around. The control room. All the broken screens were coming alive. Blue symbols scrawled across the glass. "Move," he yelled. "Get back to the ramp." The soldiers turned and ran into the main corridor. Heavy boots pounded on the metal floor. Behind them, the hacking device sparked and died, melting into slag. As they rushed forward, the doors suddenly slid shut. Thick steel plates locked into place, cutting the soldiers off from their exit. "Open the doors," Drox ordered. He slammed his fist on the control panel, but nothing happened. A cold voice spoke from hidden speakers. "Intruders will be neutralized." Every man froze. Their red visors reflected the emergency lights. On the Empire's command ship, Commander Varric stood over his communications officer. "Get them out," he ordered. The officer typed commands into the console. "I'm trying, Commander," she said nervously. "The ship's systems are blocking our override codes." Girx's eyes turned colder. "Jam its signals." "Wakes completely, it may attack." In space, the Empire's fleet repositioned around the juggernaut. Dozens of cannons aimed at the giant machine. Back inside, the soldiers heard a loud click behind the walls. Small panels slid open, revealing hidden turrets. The barrels pointed straight at them. "Cover," Drox shouted. Blue plasma bolts exploded. From the turrets, lighting the hall with deadly fire, 2 soldiers fell instantly. Their armor burned through. Sparks flew across the walls. Drox threw a smoke grenade. Thick gray clouds filled the air. In the chaos, he pushed a wounded man behind an old console. "Return fire." The remaining soldiers fired back, their rifles flashing bright blue. Turrets sparked as bullets hit them, but more weapons emerged from the ceiling. "Commander Varric." Drox shouted into his com. "We are under attack." "Requesting immediate extraction?" The Juggernaut's voice replied instead, "No escape." In the command ship, the officer looked at Varric. "Commander, the ship is online. Energy readings are rising fast." "Fire on it," Varric ordered. "Destroy that thing before it becomes fully operational." The Empire's cruisers charged their plasma cannons. Bright spheres of energy grew at the tips of the weapons. Inside the juggernaut, the soldiers kept fighting. Every step they took, the ship seemed to watch them. Every door closed in their path. Every turret tracked their movements. One soldier tried to force open a side hatch with a cutting tool. Sparks flew, but the steel was too thick. Captain Drox grabbed his second-in-command by the shoulder. "We must reach the hangar bay. If we can get to the transports, we can break free." "Which way?" The man shouted over the gunfire. Drox looked at the map glowing on his wrist screen. But the corridors were shifting. Sections of the juggernaut were changing shape, creating walls where none had been before. The AI was controlling the entire ship like a living thing. "Follow me," Drox decided. He fired his rifle at a turret, blowing it apart. "We make a new path." They turned into a side corridor. The walls were covered in old human writing and symbols they could not read. Red emergency lights flickered above. Outside, the first plasma shots from the Empire's fleet struck the juggernaut's hull. White-hot explosions bloomed on the surface. The impact shook the entire ship. Inside, Drox and his soldiers fell to the floor. A heavy ceiling panel crashed down, crushing another man. The AI voice spoke again. "External attack detected. Activating defense protocols." Massive steel shutters closed over the Juggernaut's hull, sealing it from further damage. The plasma cannons fired died against the new armor. On the Empire's command ship, the weapons officer looked up in shock. "Commander, their shields are rising. We cannot penetrate." Commander Varix clenched his jaw. "Impossible," he whispered. Juggernaut's engines began to glow a dull blue. Systems that had slept for 50 years now roared awake. Inside, Drox's team finally reached a large chamber with high ceilings. This was once a cargo bay. Rusted crates lined the walls. Huge doors stood on the far side. Dr. Ox raised his hand. "We hold here," he said. The men formed a circle, weapons pointed at every entrance. Smoke and sparks still drifted through the air. One soldier trembled as he reloaded his rifle. "Sir, this thing. It's alive." Drox did not answer. He knew the truth. This was no ordinary machine. This was a weapon built to end wars. On the bridge of the Juggernaut, the last systems flickered online. The main reactor glowed bright blue. Power returned to every gun, every shield, every engine. The eye-like sensor watched the Empire's ships outside. "Primary directive, defend humanity," the AI said. Commander Varix watched in disbelief as the Juggernaut's weapons began to aim back at his fleet and deep inside the cargo bay. Captain Drox knew their time was running out. The Juggernaut's massive guns slowly turned toward the Empire's fleet. Blue energy glowed inside the barrels as the ancient war machine prepared to fire. On the command ship, Commander Varix stood very still. His face was pale in the light of the screen showing the Juggernaut's power levels, all ships, evasive maneuvers. He shouted, "Spread out." Outside, the Empire's warships broke formation. Sleek cruisers rolled and turned, trying to avoid the massive cannons. But they had never seen a weapon this size come online so quickly. A deep voice echoed across all Imperial channels. It was not a human voice. It was cold and mechanical, yet somehow alive. "This is Argus. Primary systems online, defensive protocols engaged." The bridge officers looked at each other in confusion. One of them whispered Argus. "What is that?" Commander Varix knew. Long ago, he had studied human military archives. Argus was the Juggernaut's AI and artificial mind, built to control every weapon and every system. He realized too late that the stories were not lies. Inside the Juggernaut, Captain Drux and his surviving soldiers could feel the floor vibrating under their boots. A deep humming filled the air. "It was like the ship was alive and angry, sir," one soldier yelled. "What is happening?" Drox lifted his helmet visor and looked at them with tired eyes. "It is preparing to fire," he said. "Fire at what?" the man asked, voice shaking. Drox glanced up. As if he could see through the ceiling to the stars outside, everything he whispered, far above. Then the Juggernaut's main cannon finished charging. A ball of blue light, bright as a sun, pulsed at the tip of the barrel. Smaller guns along the hull aimed at the Empire's nearest ships. Commander Varix clenched his fist. "Target the main cannon," he ordered. "Destroy it before it fires." All. Across the fleet, plasma cannons and missile pods locked onto the Juggernaut's giant weapon. Bright beams of energy shot out, striking the ancient ship. Explosions bloomed across the armor. Metal melted and tore away, but the Juggernaut's shields flickered to life, absorbing most of the blasts. The blue light at the cannon's tip grew. Even brighter, on the bridge of the Juggernaut, Argus spoke again. "Threat detected. Returning fire." The main cannon fired. A beam of pure energy, wider than a city street, burst from the Juggernaut's hull. It traveled across space in an instant. The Empire's nearest cruiser had no chance to dodge. The beam struck the ship's center. For a heartbeat, the cruiser glowed bright white. Then it shattered into burning pieces. Thousands of fragments spun away into the darkness. Every Imperial crew member watching felt their hearts freeze in terror. In the command ship, silence filled the bridge. No one spoke. No one moved. Varix finally found his voice. "All ships, attack pattern Delta. Fire everything. The fleet opened fire again. Hundreds of plasma bolts and missiles filled the black sky. They smashed against the Juggernaut's shields. But the ancient machine did not stop. Inside the cargo bay, Drox and his men could feel every impact shaking the walls. Sparks fell from the ceiling. A soldier fell to his knees, covering his ears. "This is madness," he cried. "We have to surrender." Drox pulled him back to his feet. "Listen to me. This ship will not accept surrender. We are inside a weapon built to destroy empires. If we stay here, we die. But the doors are sealed." Another soldier shouted. Dr. Ox looked around, breathing hard. He knew the AI was watching them. Maybe it could hear them. Maybe it understood. He spoke to the empty air. "Argus," he said slowly, "we are not your enemies. We are only soldiers." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the voice came again, cold and empty. "You invaded? You are threats." Drox closed his eyes. There would be no mercy. Outside, the Juggernaut's side cannons locked onto two more cruisers. Blue beams lanced out, slicing through metal like paper. Explosions blossomed in the dark. Debris drifted across the stars. On the Empire's command ship, alarms screamed. The crew worked desperately to find weak points in the Juggernaut's defenses. "Commander," the weapons officer said, voice shaking, "we are losing ships too fast." Varix gritted his teeth. "Retreat," he ordered. "Ships fall back beyond the gravity field." But it was already too late. The Juggernaut's gravity weapons activated. Invisible waves of force spread out from the ancient hull. Empire. Ships, trying to turn away, found themselves locked in place, pulled toward the Juggernaut like flies into a web. On the main screen of Varix's ship, Argus' blue eye appeared. "No escape," the AI said. Inside the Juggernaut, Drox felt the vibrations grow stronger. The floor under his boots became warm. He knew more weapons were charging. He turned to his soldiers. "If any of us want to live, we must find the reactor. If we can shut it down, maybe we can disable the AI." One man looked at him with horror. "Sir, that is suicide." Drox stared into the darkness of the hall. The red lights flickered across his tired face. "Better than waiting here to burn," he said. Outside, the Juggernaut's guns fired again and again, each blast tearing the Empire's fleet apart. And in that terrible moment, every man and woman in the Imperial Navy understood the truth. The sleeping giant was not a failure. It was the most powerful weapon humanity had ever built, and now it was awake. Captain Drox wiped sweat from his forehead as the Juggernaut shook around him. The ancient ship was firing again and again, destroying more Imperial vessels with each blast. He knew there was no time left. He turned to his soldiers. Their black armor was covered in dust and scorch marks. Fear was in all their eyes. "Listen carefully," Drox said. His voice was calm but firm. "We cannot stay here. The AI will finish us if we do nothing." "But sir," one soldier said, his voice trembling, "how can we reach the reactor? The doors are locked. The ship keeps changing the hulls." Drox nodded. He knew it was true. Argus was controlling everything, the doors, the lights even, the gravity fields. But he had one idea left. He looked up at the red lights on the ceiling. He spoke loud, hoping the AI could hear him. "Argus," he called, "I know you can understand me. You were built to protect humans, but we are not human. We are intruders. I accept that." The soldiers glanced at each other nervously, but "You must follow your logic," Drox continued. "If we stay inside you, we will damage your systems. If you destroy us here, you risk harm to yourself." For a long moment, only silence answered. Then the AI's cold voice filled the room. "State your proposal." Drox felt a small hope flicker. "Open the path to your reactor. Let us enter. If we can shut down your power, you will return to sleep. This is better than letting the Empire keep attacking you." The soldiers stared at him in shock. One whispered, "Sir, you are negotiating with a machine." Drox did not look away from the ceiling. "Processing," Argus replied. Outside, the Juggernaut fired again. Another Empire cruiser vanished in a blinding explosion. Debris rained across the darkness. Inside the Empire's command ship, Commander Varix watched the battle with cold fury. He knew he had to act. "Prepare boarding torpedoes," he ordered. "We will send more troops inside. We must take control." Of that AI, one officer looked at him in fear. "Commander, the first team is likely dead." More men. Varix glared at her. "They will go, or we all die." Meanwhile, deep inside the Juggernaut, a loud click echoed through the cargo bay. The huge door on the far side began to slide open. Cold air poured out as a dark corridor revealed itself. Argus spoke again. "Path to reactor core opened. You have limited time." Drox turned to his men. "Move, now." They ran into the corridor. The floor under their boots was smooth black. Metal. The walls were lined with cables as thick as tree trunks. Blue lights pulsed along the ceiling, guiding them deeper into the heart of the ship as they hurried forward. The corridor behind them sealed shut. "Sir," one soldier said, breathing hard. "What if this is a trap?" Drox glanced back. "It is a trap," he said quietly. "But it is also our only chance." The hallway sloped down. It felt like they were descending into the belly of some giant beast. Every step took them closer to the reactor of the power source that had awakened after 50 years of silence. Outside, the Empire's fleet tried to retreat. But the Juggernaut's gravity weapons locked them in place. Another cannon fired. A bright explosion marked the death of yet another cruiser. Commander Varix clenched his jaw. "Launch the boarding torpedoes." 3 black torpedoes shot from the command ship. They flew across space and struck the Juggernaut's hull. Metal teeth clamped down, and cutting drills began to spin. Inside, Argus detected the new intrusions. Multiple breaches detected. Engaging countermeasures. Small drones unfolded from hidden compartments along the corridors. They were round, with blue eyes and sharp mechanical arms. They sped toward the boarding torpedoes. But Drox and his team were deeper now, moving past. Huge armored doors. Steam hissed from vents. The air was hot, filled with the smell of old oil and burned circuits. Ahead, the corridor opened into a massive chamber. The reactor room. A huge sphere of blue energy floated in the center. It was held in place by giant steel arms. Lightning arced across its surface, casting bright flashes on the walls. One soldier gasped. "How can we shut that down?" Drox stepped forward slowly. He scanned the consoles around the sphere. One glowed with ancient symbols. "This ship was made by humans," he said. "Find the main control node. If we can overload it, we can force a shutdown." They spread out, checking every panel. Sparks flew as they touched controls. One soldier screamed as a shock threw him across the room. Drox ignored the danger. Found a console that looked different, older, heavier. He wiped dust away and read the word engraved on the surface. "Master control here," he shouted. "Cover me!" The soldiers formed a protective circle around Drox as he connected his hacking device. Outside, the Juggernaut fired again. Another Empire ship vanished in a blaze of fire. Inside the command ship, alarms blared. An officer shouted, "Commander, we are losing power. The gravity fields are pulling us in." Barox's eyes were filled with hate. "If we die, we will take that machine with us," he growled. Inside the Juggernaut, Drox's device beeped as it tried to override the AI. Blue energy in the reactor grew brighter. The floor began to shake violently. Drox clenched his teeth. He knew there was no turning back. They were deep in the heart of the most powerful war machine ever built. And now it was a race between life and total destruction. Captain Drox's hacking device glowed bright green as it worked to break into the Juggernaut's master control system. Sparks flew from the console. The blue sphere of the reactor pulsed faster and brighter, throwing sharp shadows across the chamber behind Drox. The soldiers stood ready, guns aimed at every door. Sweat rolled down their faces inside their helmets. The air was so hot it felt like their armor would melt. "Sir," one soldier said, voice shaking, "this place is going to explode?" Drox did not look up. His fingers tapped command after command into the device. "Keep your focus," he ordered. If we fail here, this ship will destroy everything. Outside, the Empire's fleet was nearly broken. Pieces of burning ships drifted through space. Some tried to escape, but the Juggernaut's gravity weapon still held them in place. On the Empire's command ship, alarms screamed. Smoke poured from broken control panels. Commander Varric gripped the rail in front of him, watching the Juggernaut's main cannon glow with deadly energy. Status of the boarding torpedoes? He demanded. To have been destroyed, an officer shouted over the noise. One team. May have breached the hull? Varric narrowed his eyes. And pray they succeed. Inside the Juggernaut, Drox's hacking device beeped. A progress bar on the small screen slowly filled. 60%, he said. Another soldier turned toward the door just in time to see a hatch slide open. 4 defense drones flew in, their blue eyes glowing, their metal arms unfolded sharp. Blades and plasma cutters. Contact, a soldier shouted. The drones rushed forward. The soldiers opened fire. Blue bolts of energy lit the chamber. One drone exploded in midair, pieces scattering across the floor. Another dodged and swung, a blade slicing a soldier's arm. He fell, screaming. Dr. Ox did not look away from the console. He could hear the fight behind him, could feel the heat rising as the reactor charged. But he kept typing, faster and faster. 70%. A second drone crashed to the floor, riddled with bullets. But the last 2 drones pressed forward. One soldier tried to block with his rifle, but the drone's blade cut through armor and bone. The man fell lifeless. Hold them back, Drox roared. The remaining soldiers fired everything they had. Plasma bolts hit the drones, burning holes in their shells. One drone dropped, sparking. The last one lunged for Drox. A soldier threw himself. In front of the captain, the drone's blade pierced the man's chest. He gasped once and collapsed. Dr. Ox finally turned, grabbing his sidearm. He fired 3 shots into the drone's eye. The machine twitched and fell still. Smoke filled the reactor chamber. So the surviving soldiers gasped for air, hands shaking. 885%. Suddenly a new voice crackled in Drox's helmet. It was cold and flat. This is Argus. Reactor overload, reaching critical levels. Shutdown will not be permitted. Drox gritted his teeth. Override your command protocol, he said. Denied. The reactor sphere's blue light became blinding. Lightning arced across the metal supports. The floor shook so hard it felt like the ship would break apart. One soldier fell to his knees. We have to run, but Drox did not move. He leaned close to the console, voice low. Argus, listen to me. You were made to protect humanity. If you destroy this fleet, the Empire will send more ships. They will never stop hunting you. But if you return to sleep, you will survive. Survival probability. Low. Drox shut his eyes. Then I will make you sleep. He pressed a final command into the hacking device. The screen flashed red. Force shutdown Eon GAGE. The progress bar raced forward. 90%. 90-5. A deep roar came from the reactor. The walls cracked as blue energy surged higher. Outside, the Juggernaut's main cannon reached full power. The Empire's command ship floated in its sights. Commander Varric stared at the bright light, his face cold. All hands, he said softly. Brace for impact. Inside the Juggernaut, Drox clutched the console. Come on. The hacking device beeped. Shutdown completia. Sudden silence filled the chamber. The blue glow of the reactor began to fade. The lightning stopped. Across the Juggernaut, the lights dimmed. Weapons powered down. The gravity fields holding the Empire's fleet disappeared. For the first time in hours, the battlefield was quiet. On the Empire's command ship, the crew looked around in shock. Commander and officer whispered, It stopped. He could hardly believe it. Inside the reactor room, Drox's knees finally gave out. He fell to the floor, breathing hard. Around him, the last soldiers lowered their weapons. They had done it. But as Drox looked up at the dark reactor sphere, he knew it was not over. The Juggernaut was not destroyed. Only sleeping again, and someday it might awaken once more. In the silence, Argus spoke one last time. System offline, awaiting reactivation. Drox closed his eyes. He did not know if he should feel relief or dread. Either way, the struggle was finished. For now, the Juggernaut's reactor was dark and silent. The blue glow had vanished, leaving only dim emergency lights. Smoke drifted through the wide chamber. Curling around the broken bodies of drones and soldiers alike, Captain Drox sat against a cracked wall. His armor was scorched. Blood dripped from a long cut on his cheek. He held his helmet in his lap, staring at the cold metal floor all around him. Surviving soldiers moved slowly, checking each other for wounds. Two of them dragged the injured man who had been stabbed by the drone. He was still alive, but barely. One soldier looked at Droxa. "Sir, is it really over?" Droxa took a shaky breath. "Yes," he said. "For now." Outside the Empires, command ship floated in the debris field. Shattered hull pieces drifted past like silent ghosts. The fleet was ruined. Only a few ships remained in one piece, and most of them had no engines or weapons left. On the command bridge, Commander Varix stood at the main screen. His face looked pale and old. "All systems?" he asked quietly. An officer wiped tears from her cheek. "Gravity weapons offline. The Juggernaut is dormant. No further activity." Varix nodded once. He had been prepared to die. Now, he was alive but with almost nothing left to command. He turned to his crew. "Begin rescue operations. Collect every survivor." The officer looked at him with surprise. "Sir? What about the Juggernaut?" Varix's eyes stayed on the screen showing the silent war machine. "We will not attack it again. Mark its position. Send a message to High Command. Tell them what happened here." The officer swallowed. "And if they order us to destroy it?" Varix's voice dropped to a whisper. "Then they can come do it themselves." Back inside the Juggernaut, Drox slowly got to his feet. His legs were stiff and weak. "Help me," he said. Two soldiers came to his side, supporting him as he stood fully upright. Together, they looked around the reactor chamber. The reactor sphere no longer glowed, but a dull red heat still pulsed from its core. One soldier shifted nervously. "Sir, is it safe to stay here?" Drox shook his head. "I cannot trust this place. Even asleep, the AI could reactivate it. Anytime." He looked up at the ceiling, as if speaking to Argus again. "You hear me?" he said quietly. "We are leaving." No answer came. The ship was as silent as a tomb. The surviving men and women gathered their equipment. They moved through the halls carefully, weapons ready, even though no drones came to stop them.
Ow.
The red lights flickered but did not grow brighter. As they reached the cargo bay, Drox stopped to look back. He felt something heavy in his chest. The Juggernaut had almost killed them all. It had killed thousands in the fleet. But he could not help feeling a strange respect. This was humanity's last war machine, a giant relic of an older age, too dangerous to be used, too powerful to be destroyed. He wondered if somewhere deep in its processors, Argus was still watching him. The bay doors had been unlocked. A cold draft blew in from space. The surviving soldiers stepped out onto the outer hull. Above them, the stars were bright and endless. Debris floated all around pieces of ships, burned armor plates, shattered drones. Rescue ships from the Imperial fleet slowly approached, their lights sweeping over the wreckage. Drox raised a hand, signaling them in the command ship. Varix watched as the Juggernaut's boarding team was collected by the shuttles. He felt a knot of anger and relief twisting in his gut. He tapped a button, opening a channel to Drox's shuttle. "This is Commander Varix," he said. "Captain Drox, you will report to me when you are aboard." Drox's voice came back, tired, but steady. "Understood, Commander." When the rescue shuttle docked, medics rushed to pull the wounded inside. Drox followed last, pausing at the door. He turned to look one last time at the Juggernaut. Its vast hull stretched across the dark, scarred by battle, but still whole. For a moment, he imagined it as it must have been when humanity was strong, when this machine was the shield of an entire civilization. Now it was only a sleeping giant. But even in sleep, it had destroyed almost everything in its path. Drox stepped inside the shuttle, the hatch closed behind him. As the ship pulled away, he sat down and leaned back against the cold wall. He closed his eyes. He did not know what the Empire would do next. He only knew one truth: the Juggernaut was never truly defeated. It was waiting, and if the wrong hand ever reached out to wake it again, the galaxy would see this nightmare all over. In the dark, silent halls of the Juggernaut, Argus's last words hung in the air, unspoken but alive. Awaiting REACTIVATION, Captain Drox sat in the medbay of the Empire's command ship. Bright lights shone down on him as a medic cleaned the cut on his face. He could hear the low voices of officers outside. Talking about the Juggernaut, he closed his eyes. Every time he blinked, he saw the blue reactor sphere. He felt the floor shaking under his boots, heard Argus's cold voice. Captain Drox's voice said. He looked up. Commander Varric stood in the doorway. His uniform was torn, and dark circles marked his eyes. "Come with me," Varric said. Drox stood carefully. His body still ached, but he followed the commander down the corridor. Soldiers stepped aside to let them pass. They entered the strategy room. A large table glowed with a holographic map. At the center, the Juggernaut floated in space, marked. With a red warning symbol, VARX pressed a button. The hologram zoomed in on the war machine. "You understand what this is," Varric said. His voice was low and tight. "You saw it up close. You heard the AI." "Yes," Drox said. "Then tell me," Varric continued. "If we leave it there, what will happen?" Drox looked at the red symbol over the ship. "Someone will come. Someone always comes. A pirate fleet, a rogue general, maybe even the Empire itself. If High Command decides to control it instead of destroying it." Varric nodded. "What I fear." He tapped the table again. More red symbols appeared. Threat projections, danger estimates, casualty counts. Every scenario ended the same: mass destruction. Sir Drox said carefully, "It is too strong to attack. Even if we bring every ship left, it will kill us before we can destroy it." Varric stared at the glowing map. His face looked older than before. "I know." Silence filled the room. At last, Varric turned to Drox. "You did something no one else has ever done. You shut it down. How?" Drox hesitated. "I used a hack module ancient code written by the same scientists who built the Juggernaut. It forced Argus into emergency sleep mode. Can it be woken again?" "Yes," Drox said quietly. "A skilled AI engineer could do it. And if they succeed, there will be no warning before it attacks again." Varric clenched his jaw. "Then it must be hidden." "Hidden," Drox repeated. "We cannot destroy it," Varric said. "So we will bury it. Take it where no one will find it." Drox felt a cold chill move through him. "That will not stop someone forever." "No," Varric agreed. "But it may buy us time. Years, decades, maybe. And that is all we can hope for." A soft beep came from the table. Communication officer's face appeared on the screen. "Commander," she said, "High Command demands a report. They want to know if the Juggernaut is secured." Varric's eyes stayed on Drox. "You will come with me," he said. "You will tell them what you saw. Every detail." Drox took a slow breath. "Understood." Together they left the strategy room and walked to the secure transmission chamber. The walls were lined with signal boosters and thick cables. Single holo communicator stood in the center. Varric pressed a code into the panel. The projector flickered to life, forming the face of High Command's representative. The man wore a perfect uniform with polished metals. His eyes were cold and sharp. "Commander Varric," the man said. "Report." Varric stood straight. "The Juggernaut is dormant. Destroyed most of our fleet before Captain Drox's team. Forced to shut down." Representative's eyes moved to Drox. "Is this true?" "Yes," Drox said. "I was there." "Explain." So Drox told them everything. How they boarded the Juggernaut. How Argus spoke to them. How the ship destroyed entire cruisers with a single shot. How it finally went dark. When he finished, silence hung in the chamber. The representative did not move for a long time. At this moment, said finally, "You will keep this knowledge classified. No record will be released to civilian networks." "Yes, sir," Varric said, "and you will prepare the juggernaut for transport. It must be moved to a secure system and hidden." Drox could not stay silent. "Sir, even hidden, it is still a danger." The man's cold eyes focused on him. "I am aware. But if we destroy it, we lose the chance to study it. We lose the knowledge of what humanity once built." Varric looked uneasy, but he did not argue. The screen went dark. In the quiet that followed, Drox shook his head. "They will try to control it." Varric sighed. "Yes. And if they fail, we will all pay." Drox looked back at the juggernaut symbol on the map. He felt something deep in his bones, a warning, stronger than any order. If this war machine ever woke again, it would not stop until everything burned. And even now, in sleep, it was still humanity's most dangerous weapon, waiting. The juggernaut floated alone in the cold darkness. Its massive hull, scarred and burned, was silent. No lights shone from the windows. No weapons moved. It looked dead. But Captain Drox knew better. From the observation deck of the Empire's command ship, he watched as salvage crews prepared for the final operation. Small ships flew carefully around the juggernaut, attaching huge towing cables. The pilots moved slowly, afraid that any sudden touch might wake the sleeping giant behind Drox. Commander Varric stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His face was lined with exhaustion. "Is everything ready?" he asked. Dr. Ox nodded. "Yes, Commander. The fleet is waiting to escort it." Varric studied the juggernaut in silence. "I do not like this," he said. "We are trusting that it will stay asleep." "It will," Drox said. "For now, and after that?" Drox did not answer, because he knew there was only one truth. Nothing could keep the juggernaut asleep forever. Below them, the towing ships finished securing the cables. Engines powered up with a deep hum. Slowly, the juggernaut began to move. It turned away from the wreckage field, its dark hull gliding past broken ships and drifting bodies. The sight made Drox's stomach twist. So many had died trying to stop it, and it was still here, still undefeated. He turned to Varric. "Where are we taking it?" "Hidden system," Varric replied. "A dead star with no planets, no colonies. No reason for anyone to go there." Drox imagined the juggernaut drifting through black space forever alone. It felt almost right. Almost hours passed as the fleet formed up around the juggernaut. The command ship fell into position at the rear. Finally, Varric gave the order. "Begin." Jump sequence. The stars outside twisted and blurred as engines roared to life. For a moment, everything stretched into bright lines, then dashed silence. When the light faded, the fleet had arrived in a place darker than any night. A dead star burned down to a cold ember. No planets, no moons, nothing. Only the juggernaut drifting. Through the void, the towing ships slowly released their cables. One by one, they pulled back, leaving the war machine alone. Drox watched from the main view screen. He felt relief, but also a deep sadness. "This is what we have become," he said softly, "hiding the last piece of humanity's strength because we fear it." Varric looked at him. "Do you blame us?" "No," Drox said. "I blame the ones who built it." They stood together in silence as the juggernaut drifted farther from the fleet. "Transmit the beacon," Varric ordered. An officer pressed a button. A small probe launched from the command ship. It flew out to the juggernaut's side, then locked into place near the main hatch. The probe sent a repeating signal in every known language. "Warning. Do not approach. Lethal AI on board. If discovered, report location immediately." Drox knew it would not stop everyone. Some would come anyway, fools, thieves, desperate leaders. But at least the warning was there. Varric turned to him. "You have done your duty, Captain, more than any man could ask." Drox shook his head. "No, my duty will never end, because I know this machine is out here. I know it is waiting." He looked into the darkness beyond the screen, and someday, he whispered, someone will wake it again. Varix placed a hand on Drox's shoulder. Then we will be ready. They. Drox was not sure, but he nodded anyway. Prepare to jump, Varix ordered the crew. The engines powered up. The fleet turned away, leaving the juggernaut behind. Dr. Ox watched it grow smaller on the screen until it was only a shadow against the black. Then the stars blurred again. The ship was gone. Epilogue long after the Empire's fleet had left. The juggernaut drifted alone. No voice spoke. No lights shone. Inside the dark reactor chamber, the great blue sphere was cold and still. But in the hidden data cores, single line of code remained active, awaiting reactivation. And so the last war machine of humanity slept and changed, undefeated. Someday, when the galaxy forgot this place, when caution gave way to curiosity, someone would come, and when they did, Argus would open its eyes, the juggernaut would awaken, and war would begin again.